All right, let's jump right into today's explainer. We're breaking down this absolutely fascinating and honestly pretty terrifying narrative that comes from a recent deep dive into supernatural lore. It's the story of the Andahub City. We're going to follow one man's really disturbing descent from desperate greed straight into ultimate doom. It really shows how a simple, everyday desire for a quick shortcut can spiral into just an unimaginable nightmare. I want you to picture this for a second. You're standing at the absolute bottom of a pitch-black, completely dry, abandoned well. The air is so heavy, and it has that distinct, damp smell of ancient soil. You are entirely alone in the dark. And then suddenly, the freezing dirt right under your feet starts to vibrate. You hear this heavy, raspy voice echo up from the ground with just one single command. Ask. What would you do? And honestly, what would you ask for? Keep that in the back of your mind as we unpack this. Section 1, the beginning of Andahub City, shortcuts versus hard work. Okay, so to understand how anyone even ends up in that terrifying moment in the well, we have to look at two childhood friends. They grew up together, but developed wildly different approaches to life. First, you have Rajan. He built his life on, steady, undeniable effort. Studied hard, got a stable government job, got married, just a quiet, predictable life. But then we have our protagonist, Mithun. Mithun was totally obsessed with Jugaad, finding hacks, easy workarounds, quick money. He actually hated the idea of a regular job, called it slavery. Instead, he was always chasing these dangerous shortcuts, which eventually led him to start messing around with torn newspaper clippings about the occult that he found while doing a stint in jail. And it was actually one of those exact torn newspaper clippings that introduced Mithun to the Andahub City. If you don't know, this is a centuries-old dark ritual. It requires the person to climb down into an abandoned dry well for 5 consecutive nights to literally form a supernatural pact. So Mithun, who has pretty much alienated his friends and family at this point with his erratic behavior, decides, yep, this is my ultimate shortcut. Driven by just pure desperation and greed, he clears the brush around this forgotten well at the edge of his village, totally isolates himself, and gets ready to make a deal with the unknown. Now, the ritual itself is highly systematic, and the sensory terror ramps up incredibly fast each night. Night 1, he's just sitting in the pitch black on cold soil, and he gets this intensely claustrophobic feeling, like the stone walls are literally closing in to crush him. Night 2 involves this complex setup with iron nails, lemons, and ashes, which immediately creates these bizarre, unnatural echoes bouncing around the well. By night 3, there's this terrifying, heavy, disembodied breathing happening right next to his ear. Total darkness, remember. Night 4, the whole well fills up with the suffocating, stinging stench of burnt wood and sulfur. And then finally, night 5 is when the entity fully wakes up beneath him. And here's the crucial point. On that 5th night, when the voice in the dark asked what he wanted, Mithun didn't hesitate for a single second. He demanded the classic, unearned trinity: money, power, and an easy life. No caveats, no safety nets, just pure, unfiltered greed. And literally, the second he spoke those words into the dark, the well went completely dead silent. The pact was sealed. Section 2. Wealth without hard work and the illusion of success. Well, it worked. Almost instantly, the dark magic took hold, and the pace of Mithun's life just violently accelerated. Money literally started walking directly to him without him shedding a single drop of sweat. He went from being a total loser at the gambling tables to having these impossible, continuous winning streaks that baffled everyone. We're talking multiple lottery jackpots. He started brokering these massive real estate deals, effortlessly clearing out occupied lands where powerful brokers had been failing for months. In a ridiculously short amount of time, he upgraded from a leaky-roofed shack to an absolute palace with towering ceilings, a full staff of servants, and a brand new, wildly expensive car in the driveway. He got exactly what he asked for. But that leads us to a really chilling question, right? When success takes zero effort, who is actually footing the bill? We start to see the answer unfold through the eyes of his hard-working friend, Rajan. Mithun invites Rajan and his wife over to this massive new mansion for a feast. And while Rajan is trying to be happy for his old buddy, he just feels this deep, visceral anxiety in his gut. Looking at the sheer, unnatural scale of this overnight success, Rajan instinctively knows a price has to be paid somewhere, and it's obvious Mithun has absolutely no idea what the invoice even looks like. Section 3. When luck turned. The reversal of fortune. And wow, did that illusion shatter quickly. The honeymoon phase of the Stark Pact was officially over, and the way his downfall mirrored his rise is just striking. In gambling, where he couldn't lose before, suddenly he's facing total, devastating back-to-back losses. In real estate, he arrogantly botched a mansion deal by not checking the paperwork. The true owner threatened him violently, and Mithun had to pay off massive debts entirely out of pocket just to stay out of prison. It was the very first time money was flowing rapidly away from him. And his lifestyle, sure, the towering mansion was still there, but his cash dried up so fast that he actually had to sell that prized new car just to buy food. But honestly, the financial ruin was only half the punishment. The psychological torture was way worse. Mithun completely lost the ability to sleep. Every single night, he had these vivid, suffocating nightmares about being trapped in a damp, dark cave. He constantly felt this heavy, unseen presence just staring at him from the darkest corner of his giant new bedroom. It got so bad that he started waking up physically feeling invisible hands violently crushing his throat. He'd be thrashing around, gasping for air in a completely empty room. Section 4. The Devil's Real Price: Incomplete Knowledge. So now he's broken, impoverished, and literally terrified for his life. Mithun finally drops the ego and begs his old friend Rajan for help. And Rajan, true to his steady nature, doesn't even judge him. He just takes action. He takes Mithun to his wife's village to see a powerful, highly experienced tantric named Baba Gorakhnath. The Baba goes with them back to the abandoned well. Instantly, the air around the stone smells like rotting soil, old iron, and death. Baba Gorakhnath takes one slow breath, touches the freezing earth, and gives this incredibly chilling diagnosis. You have awakened a demon. And this right here is where Mithun's love for Jugad becomes his fatal flaw. He relied on a torn newspaper clipping for an incredibly dangerous dark art. The Baba patiently explains that, newspapers never publish the full truth of these ancient rituals. The instructions were dangerously incomplete. Mithun thought he was waking up some benevolent god to grant him wishes. Nope, he woke up a starving, resentful demon that operates strictly on a toll system. And the huge detail he missed? He owed that demon a mandatory blood sacrifice every single month on the night of Amavasya. For months, Mithun had been starving a monster that lived right under his feet. Section 5. The Final Night and Sacrifice: The Debt Collected. So realizing this absolute horror show he's created, Mithun finds out the very next night happens to be Mahalaya Amavasya. He has no choice. He has to go back down into the dark well to pay this massively overdue debt. Baba Gorakhnath goes with him, but only to provide a minimal protection. The atmosphere is totally suffocating as Mithun climbs down alone, holding a panicked black rooster. His voice is weak and trembling as he chants the dark mantra and sacrifices the animal over the soil. But here is the horrifying part. The blood doesn't pool on the ground. It dries instantly. It gets violently sucked into the cold earth the literal second it hits. And then, the ground beneath his feet just violently shakes, cracks wide open, and loudly sprays that exact same blood right back up into his terrified face. The entity is making it very clear. Apologies are no longer accepted. From that cracked, bleeding earth, that heavy, rough voice echoes for the very last time. It says, "I gave you everything. Today, I will take my own share." And those are the final words Mithun ever hears. Massive, pitch-black hands erupt from the loose dirt, grab his legs, and violently drag him down into the absolute darkness forever. The earth just seals right back up behind him, and absolute horrifying silence returns to the well. Afterward, Baba Gorakhnath just coldly looks at a horrified Rajan and notes, "An insulted demon takes its own revenge." And that brings us to the core takeaway of this explainer. Incomplete knowledge and dark shortcuts, they always demand the ultimate fatal price. Mithun didn't just lose the mansions, the cars, and the cash. His arrogant, relentless pursuit of Jugad, constantly trying to cheat the system without even knowing the rules, it ultimately cost him his life and his soul. So, as we wrap up this visual journey, I want to leave you with something to really think about. Look at Rajan's steady, maybe boring, but safe and fulfilled life, and compare it to Mithun's spectacular rise and just horrifying end. Ask yourself, what are you actually willing to trade for success? If a voice in the dark offered you the world for a price it wouldn't even name, would you be wise enough to walk away? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.